But I tell you what, moving on now to the main part of the show, or of the walk, which is the transfers. You know, I think that if we do get drawn against the big boys, with the current state of the team that we have, I think we will struggle, because we definitely improved the quality of the squad. Like, we have, last season we had a first 11 that was like whatever, however high you want to say it, this high, and then after that we had 1 or 2 subs that were capable but not as good, and then it dropped off to like a 3 out of 10 rest of the subs bench. Now with the signings of Perisic, Bissouma, Richarlison, Foster, I think that we have improved the squad to the point where the bench is now a closer match to the starting 11, but I don't think we've really improved the starting 11 that much. Perisic is probably the only person who's going to come in realistically in the short term and make a big difference to our left side. Bissouma hasn't really come in and been given too much of a chance yet. I think in the long term he will, but again, Richarlison, I see a lot of channels talking about the problem with dropping or rotating or resting, whichever adjective you want to use, or not, that's a verb, isn't it? Whichever verb you want to use to describe the idea of Sonny not being in the starting 11 against either Nottingham Forest or Fulham or West Ham. A lot of people are saying, he's earned the right to have a couple of bad games, and other people are saying, what's the point of signing Richarlison if you're not going to use them? And I tend to be on the latter opinion. I love Sonny to pieces, but his form isn't quite tip-top, and I think it will do him good to be rotated out for a game this week or next week, whatever, when the two-game week start, and give Richarlison a chance. But it leads me on to this a lot of transfer news, right? A lot of transfer. Let me take this. 1 second, guys. 1 second. It leads me on to this idea about the transfers that we're trying to make right now. A lot of noise. Every day there's a new link, right? Is it Ruslan Malinovsky? Is it going to be James Maddison? Is it going to be Ziyech from Chelsea? Or Adama Traore? Or Alan Saint-Maximin? A lot of names being linked. Hiya. A lot of names being linked with us. A lot of money. Anthony Gordon, 50 million quid. Jack Harrison from Leeds. There's a spectrum of quality within those 6 or 7 names that I've just mentioned, and a spectrum of prices. But I also worry about the same principle being applied if we go and spend a lot of money now on a player in that position, that forward, that guy who can essentially be the 6th forward for us, and then not play. What is the point of spending 60 million quid on Richarlison if he's only going to be a 20-minute guy? Like, for me, it's silly, and on that basis I don't want to see us drop 50-60 million quid on, certainly not Anthony Gordon. I don't want to see us drop 20-30 million on Jack Harrison. I'd be okay spending 20 million quid on like a Malinovsky, because I think he will be an interesting player, but he won't chew up too much of the budget, and he won't also play. Like, we know Conte loves Kane, Sonny and Kulusevski. The only thing that's really changed this year versus last year is last year Kulusevski was the first name to be subbed, and he'd come off for Lucas Moura, even though Bergwijn deserved minutes more than Moura, and Sonny probably deserved to be rested on a few occasions when he was playing badly last season instead of Kulusevski. But because of the kudos and the brownie points that had been acquired from Sonny, that didn't really happen, and so you saw Kulusevski come off first, and then Sonny in like the 88th minute for a Bergwijn. This year that's a little bit reversed. You see Sonny come off first, but only in the 78th minute. So I don't think you're going to see whoever we sign in that position, if we sign somebody, I don't think you're going to see that person have too many minutes anyway. And so I don't want to see us drop 50 million quid or 45, 50 million or more on a player that's not going to participate. You know, especially as I think that we're crying out for a centre-back more than anything else. And if we can't find a centre-back, then I can appreciate the concept of like holding off and waiting until January, but save your budget then. Like, keep your powder dry. So don't go and spend 50 million on Anthony Gordon. Go and, if you want that creative player, 20 million for Malinovsky, 10 million for Adama Traore gets you a right wing back option and someone that can go up on the right. You know, look, I love Alan St. Maximin, but I think he's brilliant. But he's not going to come for less than 70 million, and he's not going to play if we do get him. Zaha, same. Too much money for too few minutes. Presuming there's no injuries, right? Or presuming there's no long-term injuries. But I don't think you spend 70 million quid on a player who's not going to play absent injuries as many minutes. It's just ridiculous. I want to see us go after a centre-back, and if there's not a centre-back available that Conte likes, then keep powder dry, wait till January and re-look again. For me, there is a centre-back out there that makes a lot of sense, both on the homegrown rule, positionally, and where he would add competition and quality to what we have. And that is Kilman from Wolves. I think he's really good. I know he's left-footed, so you probably couldn't have him as backup for Romero. So you'd keep Sanchez as backup for Romero, but you could have Kilman in the centre of a threes back up to Dyer. Well, that would allow you to let Japhet Tanganga move on. You've still got the homegrown covered, plus you've got a quality player that's better than what we have for the centre. And you could even probably, if needs must, put him on the left because he is left-footed, and let's say Longley coming into the centre, even though I don't personally think that Longley would be a good man to have in the middle of a three, personally. That's my option. Why don't you go to Wolves? Why don't you go to Wolves and offer them 50 million quid for Kilman and Traore? I think that would be a decent way to finish the window. Adama could come in and do the right wing back job if necessary. He could also come on as a forward if necessary. Massive impact player. A lot of people think he's, you know, all spice and no substance, and I understand the argument, but I think the indirect benefits of having Traore on the pitch are probably just as good as the direct benefits. You know, if you think about when we played Brighton last year at home and we lost, and yet towards the end of the season, Brighton didn't do the low block, the high press, none of that stuff. They squeezed the life out of the middle. The entire game was played like in a really, really, really narrow section of the pitch. And I think it was just the clever tactics of the Brighton guy, Potter, who looked at their wing backs, their wide guys, and said, our width is better than yours. We're going to squeeze the game in the midfield, give your midfielders no space, and if you want to beat us, you've got to beat us down the width, and we couldn't do it. That option doesn't exist if you have Adama Traore on the right, because teams that do have better width, and they would say, you know, our wide guys are better than yours, come through the middle. Well, you can't leave Adama Traore one-on-one with acres of space around him. So that option immediately goes out the window. And I think naturally, the second he gets the ball, 2 men, 3 men are drawn to him. Like what happened with Tottenham, played Wolves the other day. Second half, late on, Adama gets the ball, drew 3 men. 3 Tottenham men were drawn out to him. Now, he didn't have the ability at the time to really make much use of it, but with better players around him, He can draw those three guys across, pop the ball back, pop the ball inside to a Højbjerg or to a Romero, who can then play the ball long into wherever the space was vacated by the opposition players, and then allow people like Sonny and Kane and Kulusevski to do their thing. To me, it makes a lot of sense, and if you can get him for 10 million quid, it's really worth the punt. So go to Wolves, test their resolve, 50 million quid for Kilman and Traore. And I think if you get both of them done, then you're fine with the homegrown. You can let Reguilon go. You could even let maybe Jed Spence go out on loan as well, or Doherty, or Lucas Moura. There's plenty of options then of what you can do with the rest of the squad. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But for me, like I say, last thing I'll say, guys, I've been talking for a long time now, I think. For me, I feel like Kilman is the only realistic, sensible, homegrown talent. I don't think you're going to get Guehi from Palace. He'd be too much money and Crystal Palace won't want to let him go. I do think you could maybe tempt Wolves. But if not, then suck it up. We'll have to survive. Japhet Tanganga clearly can't go on loan. 1 second, sorry. Yeah, if you can't get a decent centre back, then you can't really let Japhet Tanganga go anywhere. We need a 6, and you hope to God that you can survive until January, and then or survive till November, and then reassess in January. I just don't want to see us spend an exorbitant amount of money on a player that isn't going to play. I think we're already seeing. I know it's only 3 games in. I know a lot of people are going to say, like, you're basing your opinion on too few matches, and I understand that. But I was worried all summer about spending top money. If you remember, that's why I wanted someone like an Emmanuel Dennis. You know, he was a good player. He's gone to Forest. We'll see how he does at Forest, but he scored 10 goals, more goals from open play than Richarlison, for a team that was relegated and was less successful than Everton. I just didn't see the point in dropping silly money on players that are not going to play unless there's injuries. And I'm happy that we've got Richarlison now. He does look like a good player, but I just don't want to see us drop too much more money on another player that's not going to play, which is why I don't want to see us get Anthony Gordon. Despite loving the guy, I think the guy's a great player. He's part of my fantasy team. I think he's a real talent, but I think he's at the right place to build and nurture his development. If he goes to Chelsea, he's not going to play enough. If he comes to Tottenham, he won't play enough. And that money's just silly money, so not for me. Ziyech from Chelsea. I can't imagine that Tottenham and Chelsea, when was the last time we did business together? Can't remember, but it's very unusual. The clubs don't get on, so why would anything happen there? And even if it did, look, Ziyech is a player that always plays well against Tottenham, but if you ask most Chelsea fans, he's a player that disappoints against most other teams. So he doesn't excite me. As I say, ASM, absolutely love that guy. He's a brilliant, exciting talent, but he cost a fortune, and he's not going to step in. He plays on the left. He's not going to step in front of Sonny often enough, right? So I don't think that's happening. James Maddison, highly unlikely. I'd love him, but again, Conte doesn't seem to want to play the 3-5-2. Maybe he would play with the 3-5-2 if he had a player that could help him play that position, and maybe Maddison would be that guy. But you know, he could have signed Eriksen. He could have shown more interest in Eriksen, and Eriksen said that there was no interest from Tottenham really there. So I don't think Maddison's viable. I think the only one that really makes sense to me, in terms of the trickery, in terms of what he does, free kick specialist, an absolute bullet left foot. I don't think he'd come expecting to play. I think he'd come with the expectation of being a squad player, and it wouldn't cost too much money. But at the same time, could step in and do a job should Kulusevski get injured, or any of the others. Is that Ruslan Malinovsky? I don't think Zaniolo is going to be on anymore. He just hurt himself again, hasn't he? Got injured again. The man's made from glass. So of all the names, there's 7 or 8 names that are being touted around, guys, but for me, Malinowski makes the most sense. What are your thoughts? Let me know. This has been a long ramble. I'll see you about 4:45, 5 p.m. tonight for the Champions League draw. Come on, you Spurs, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, guys, bye!